Today we're going to make some granola bars. So you'll need a 1/4 cup of light brown sugar, a 1/4 cup of slivered almonds broken in half, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 cup of honey, 2 cups of rolled oats, a 1/4 cup of butter, half a cup of chocolate chips depending on how chocolatey you want this to be, half a teaspoon of vanilla flavor stuff, and a big teaspoon of peanut butter. I like the crunchy kind. Start out by preheating your oven to about 200 degrees. Then spread the 2 cups of oats onto a baking sheet lined tray, along with the almonds, and give them all a nice mix and kind of spread it out so it's laying in a flattish layer. Pop that in the oven for about 5 minutes. Then give everything a nice mix around and leave it in there for another 5. And your house should smell really good about now. Then your oaty nutty mix should be nice and toasted. So we're going to chuck that into a bowl and then we're going to make the rest of the mix. So I'm using a small saucepan and melting the 1/4 cup of butter. And I've got it on a low medium heat. You don't want this to like boil and bubble, you just want it to like warm and melt. Then add in the 1/4 cup of honey and give it all a good stir. Add the half a teaspoon of vanilla, a nice big tablespoon of peanut butter, the half teaspoon of salt, then stir everything up so it's really nice and combined, and then add the sugar and keep stirring it until all of that sugar has dissolved into the mix. And you should end up with a nice pasty peanut butter colored mixture. Once that's ready, tip it all over your oats and mix it all up with a fork until all of the oats have like absorbed some of this liquid. And it should be quite dry, like all of the oats should have a bit of mixture on them. You should see the kind of color and texture of them change slightly, but there shouldn't be any pools of liquid or anything like that in there. Then leave it to cool down for 5 or 10 minutes, and it's time to add the chocolate chips. So I'm adding about 3/4 of the cup and giving it a really good mix, and because this mixture is still warm, the chocolate chips will melt, and that's going to help kind of bind everything together. But if you don't want your chocolate chips to melt, then wait a bit longer until the mixture's cooled down a bit more. Then it's time to turn these into bars. So I'm using a square loaf tin or a cake tin, I'm not really sure what this is. And I've lined it with tin foil and just greased it slightly so that the bars will come out really easily. And I'm spooning all of the mixture into there. I'm gently pressing it down with the back of a spoon and then adding the rest of the chocolate chips over the top. And I'd kind of hoped that these ones weren't going to melt and that there would actually be chocolate chips on top, but that didn't work and they just melted anyway. If you're making these for Burning Man or for a hot trek or something, I would not put the chocolate chips on top because they're just going to melt in the heat and it will just be sticky and horrible. Just whack them all in with the mix. So now that all the chocolate chips are on top, I'm squishing it down really, really hard. You want to make this like a really nice, solid, squished layer. I'm just using the back of the spoon and just pressing down really hard on it until everything looks really nice and flat and compressed and squished. Then leave it to cool a little bit longer, and once it's cooled, pop it in the fridge for a few hours until it's completely cooled. And once it's cooled, you should have a nice solid bar, like a huge giant breakfast bar. But because this bar is too big to eat, I am gonna chop it up into smaller pieces. It is a little bit tricky to cut up, so you probably need a big knife and, you know, a bit of arm strength to get them cut up into bars. But they are not this tough on your teeth when you try and eat them. So that's it guys, I hope you like them and I will see you next time. Bye!